You're listening to Cards to the Moon, a podcast about trading cards from both a collector and investor perspective. We hope you'll stick around for the ride as we take a deep dive into the state of the hobby, share some hot takes, hopefully some useful advice, and fun stories along the way. Hey guys, welcome to episode 53 of Cards to the Moon. My name is Clark from 5 Card Guys on Instagram. And with me as always is Hyung from Integrity Sports Cards and John, who is Trade You at Recess on IG. Alright, off the top, there are a few newsworthy things in the hobby that occurred this past week. So maybe we can hit upon each of them briefly to get our collective thoughts on them. Alright, so first, I believe we all heard about the card trimming controversy of the Trevor Lawrence Panini Contenders autograph rookie ticket card. And from the details I read on Card Porn's post, the seller, I think it was Kong's Cards 53, allegedly won the raw card on auction, then trimmed it before sending it to PSA. It got a PSA 10, and of course, it sold for way more. So I don't want to get into the details of it because what else can we say about it? I believe the latest update was that he took down the eBay canceled all his listings, so it looks like that's been rectified. But I got a couple of general questions for you guys. How prevalent do you think card trimming is in the industry? And two, yes, the trimmer is obviously at fault here, but how much blame, if any, do you think the grading companies that authenticate these trimmed cards should take? What do you guys think?
I mean, trimming's been kind of, it's not new. If you're in the hobby, you kind of know that it's an issue. It really never been addressed, right? So I should correct that because there's amazing people on like blowout forums, for instance, that like dedicate their lives to literally, that's how they got, I believe Card Porn got that kind of information was probably the guys at Blowout who basically kind of follow these things. And yeah, it's unfortunate. I think we have to take a little bit of accountability from, I think, PSA and the grading companies for sure, because they're the ones that are, authenticating it. And this is the problem with like subjective grading, right? At the end of the day, it's like it's human error. You can't really blame saying that they're involved in some kind of scandal. But although, like I said, if you do your due diligence in the past, there's a lot of stories about card trimming, and it's been a huge issue. And that's one of the problems, I guess, with the unregulated market. You run into issues like this. But to me, like it's always on, I say, the individual to always do their due diligence on what they're getting at the end of the day, right? Because you don't know what cards are trimmed. Like, who would have ever thought that a modern card would have to be trimmed? You really seen it on the vintage side, and you heard stories kind of like, on more vintage cards and older cards, they're more prone to trimming. But it's unfortunate that it happened, but like, I will say it's not like you run into this issue every day, right? There's some bad apples in the bunch, and it's good that they got called out on it. But I also think that PSA needs to take some accountability. Like I always see if any other grading company was involved, it would be on on the news like crazy, like saying like the grading company is a fraud. But since it's big boy PSA, it's like hush hush or whatever, so I would like to see that change too, just being real, just throwing that out there. I mean that's where I kind of sit with it. It's nothing new, but definitely has to be addressed. So I guess now the awareness is the number one thing for people to realize that it is an issue in the hobby, and how do we correct it from here, right?
Right. We have no idea how prevalent it is. All of us can make sort of like wild assumptions or guesses. But yeah, it sucks to see that. And then on the other side of the token, it's amazing. Good on these internet detectives, man, from Blowout. Like all of the praise to those guys. If it wasn't for them, I don't think anybody in the hobby would know that there's anything any trim cards at all ever in existence, right? It's these guys that are just hunting and looking at the specifics of these cards. And it's just unbelievable how they can catch these things. So good on those guys to catch it. Good on, card porn, like a bigger platform to kind of bring that news to the masses. It's good news. This is great stuff all around for the hobby. And for PSA, to be honest, it's a really bad look. And you know what made me think long term is we brought this up a while back, and it was a thought process of how much equity and how much money is in PSA slabs, right? We've all overpaid for PSA slabs. A lot of us don't just buy the card, we buy the slab and we pay for that PSA 10. And if at some point, bad look after bad look after bad look, I hope PSA cleans this up. But if PSA topples over, that could, I don't know, like, could you imagine the ripple effect on the rest of the hobby and card values and all of that stuff if PSA happened to fall over? So that part obviously makes you a bit nervous. So it's not a good look on PSA. I think PSA needs to clean this up. When you look at the trimming, I mean, most of the cards, the blowout forums actually catches a lot of the contender cards. Apparently, when I was reading up on it, they were saying how like the contenders in general is kind of like a thinner stock. So it's very easy to trim versus like a chromium product. So they do it often. And most of the cards are actually trimmed multiple times. Like they'll trim the top and trim the sides. I mean, I would, I don't work at PSA. I don't know. But you would think that if you just put it up to another card, it would be pretty easy to catch. Maybe they were getting a bit lazy. Like, I don't know what the situation is. But anyways, regardless, not a good look. I think PSA should, in this whole PR thing, like Hyung's right. They're kind of getting a bit of a pass here. I think they should be getting hit a bit harder, to be honest.
Yeah, I think that's fair. But PSA does have that buyback policy, right?
Right.
I think where if they get caught with authenticating it incorrectly, they'll buy it back off you at the market price. So that PSA has that going for them. But for me, I don't have any doubt in my mind that there are so many cards out there that are trimmed that haven't been found out yet by these investigators on blowout forums.
And that's just proof to like grading is so subjective by the card. It's like everything is dictated around grading. This is a perfect example to reset and buy value, and that's where you'll find value in those SGC 10s, and cards that may, they don't have the PSA label, but it's a beautiful card because the card is, one, not trimmed, and then two, it's like, you enjoy the card for what it is, right? So this is perfect example why we should, not spend so much energy in grading, because there are things like this and it does leave a sour taste in the hobby. But like I said, it's not like every card is affected, so I don't want to spread this negativity about like, you got to check every single card, that or every PSA 10 to see if it's trimmed, right? So
right, what I'm hoping for is like in the near future with AI technology or technology in general,
right,
that they'll be able to catch trim cards very quickly.
It's
like
easy, because
all you
size,
need is like
right?
your conventional width of a card or length of a card.
Absolutely.
And then let the machine see what it is, and if it's like within their parameters, then if it's trimmed or not.
Right.
So I think there's one area where technology can really speed up the process, and B, just find out right away whether something's trimmed or not.
For sure.
Right.
Yeah, that was certainly an interesting development. Second thing I want to kind of quickly touch upon on kind of a brighter note, a PSA 7 superfractor 1/1 of Lewis Hamilton's 2020 Topps Chrome card sold for a record-breaking $900,000 US on Golden. Just wanted to see, did you think that was too high, too low, or just right?
I personally thought it was too high, to be honest, but you never know with these sales.
Because it was a PSA 7 or it was a non-auto or
I think non-auto F1. I know it's the superfractor of kind of like the GOAT, but like Like it's I would expect more of like, you know, a lower price, and maybe the second sale or third sale of that card would fetch that premium. But for it to, like, I guess, sell the first public sale, I guess the big public sale, right, to be 900K, I guess it's positive for the F1 hobby to see that, you know, that's where kind of like that one of one standard is, right, with the hobby. So, but yeah, I think it was high, but I'm not complaining, you know.
I thought actually, I mean, what do we know about the high end market? But I felt like it was I felt like it was a pretty good deal. I don't know. Like, probably could have got a lot more money if it was a PSA 9 or a 10, if we're being honest. You know, the GOAT and F1 has been pretty hot. You know, when we've been kind of thinking about F1 for a bit now, right? You know, all of these discussions about, is it a fad? You know, no, it's actually here to stay. Is it, you know, cars is just a North American thing? So I think, you know, the hardcore F1 fans, there's no doubt that these people these are like money bag hobbyists. Like, they have some of these Europeans and Saudi Arabians, you know, like, there's people with massive amounts of money that are into F1. So I think, you know, if you were to ever dip, if you were one of those people and you were to ever dip into sports cards, like, sports cards are not your thing, but you're kind of interested, but you love F1, I mean, seems like a perfect storm to go right after the Lewis Hamilton superfractor with all your money, right? So
right.
I think that card, you know, maybe the regular refractors and the sort of the regular Joe Schmo F1 cards that are meant for the you know, for us, you know, that's, you put that to the side. But the high end, the upper echelon 1% of F1 like super cards, you know, it could be these big time whales that are going after these cards, right? So
Sure.
I personally think it's not a bad sale at all. I think that superfractor has some pretty big, you know, as much of a, you know, I'm pretty pessimistic when it comes to F1 in general, but I think for that card in particular, I think it has some legs to be pretty big in the future.
Okay. So Hyung, you think it's a bit too high. John thinks it was a good deal because I didn't know John had that much money just to hang around.
I don't know what I'm talking about, but yeah.
I don't know what to think, to tell you the truth. But for a non-auto PSA 7 of an F1, kind of a little bit still more niche card space, yeah, I think it might be a little bit too much, but who's to say? Right? Like,
it's a one of one.
Exactly. Like, I get a lot of DMs and questions. Not a lot, but, you know, I've had several every now and then that message me on 5 Card Guys that people of collectors who have one of ones, right? And they're like, "How much do you think this is worth?" I'm like, "I have no idea, man. Like, how can you know, there's no comp, right?"
Yeah, exactly.
And I you know, I give the same answer to every one of one owner that asks me that question.
Right.
Yeah.
So it's hard to say, but, like, you know, I've heard other sports card podcasts talking about this card in particular, and it's funny. People that are huge fans of F1 think it's an amazing deal. Like, if you're really into F1, this is a card you would almost pay anything for. So, like, I guess it depends on that too. And, you know, I'm not, you know, admittedly, I'm not a huge F1 fan, so maybe that's my bias there.
I think the culture too, like, it's so huge, and I think people are experiencing that culture for the first time. And I think there's going to be more of a fan base going forward, because 2020 was kind of like that, you know, that Chrome release, and the Lewis Hamilton was that chase, right? So that being the staple of kind of like all of F1, like, there would be no other, you know, really, I guess, set other than, you know, 2020 Chrome.
True.
You know what I mean? So it becomes that iconic set for that culture. So I could see, like, I think there's a strong F1 market personally. I just think there's so many people in that space. And as sports cards and alternative investments continue to grow, it reaches these people that, you know, we don't know as part of the hobby. And that's what drives the prices. Essentially, you got the hardcore hobbyists, the F1 people that that know value, right? And you have outside money coming in at the same time, and this is what drives those 101 that should have sold for $20,000 in a hobby space to like $900K,
right,
in crazy money, right? So I guess the hobbyists have the advantage here, right? And just like us, we dip into baseball. We call ourselves hobbyists, but we actually look at the value and see what are the good buys or the future investments at that same level, right? So
yeah, for sure, fair enough. I just wish Lewis Hamilton was performing better this season.
I know, yeah.
Right?
You just need that, but it's sparking other drivers too. So
that's true too.
Yeah,
that's true too, for sure. Good for the sport.
Right.
All right. And third, we actually noticed that eBay is now authenticated graded cards that sell for more than $2,000, and I believe it doesn't matter if it's an actual PSA slab or if it's some other slab, but PSA will be the third-party company making sure is authentic. So do you think this will give buyers more confidence that their high-end purchase is the real thing, which is what I think eBay is betting on? Or do you think that this is not a problem that needed to be solved?
Clark, you know my answer, and you hit it on the nail. It's like, what do you do? Eliminate the 12.9% fees for the sellers. Like, address those issues. Address like zero feedback bidders. Drives me nuts. Like those are the shill bidders that ruin auctions. Like there's so much other stuff that eBay should be taking care of. I'm sick of the authentication process. Honestly, I bought so many cards online, eBay. Last thing I'm worried about is if it's real or not, And I understand it's an issue for like certain cards, but like I said, if you do your due diligence, you know what to look for. Just like, those guys who buy their Louis Vuitton bags and stuff like that, you know what fakes to look for and, common, I guess, things that you look out for, right? It's the same thing in the card space. And I believe it's up to the individual. So it's like eBay might be doing this to, hey, you know what? We might want to increase, float in the 2,000 plus target area more because it's profitable for them, right? So it's always a reason why, these companies are doing these things, right? But I wish to see them address real issues, like real issues where places like different marketplaces are emerging because eBay is becoming unaffordable, right? And being fair, I understand they have a large database, but 12.9% is pretty hefty in my opinion. Like you're giving, the big dogs a huge cut of that. How can the little guys survive essentially, on 12.9 after shipping and everything? You're 15%, buyer's premium just through eBay, right? And then you're taking on all the liability. But anyways, yeah, that's my take on their eBay authentication program. I think it's a crock. I'll just leave it at that. Focus on things that are needed.
Yeah.
Damn, Hyung is preaching. I didn't think the conversation would be going this way.
I'm just a victim here, man. I'm trying to keep up with eBay fees.
I know. I was just gonna say, I think it's really good for the hobby.
You could disagree, John. Don't be afraid of honestly, Hyung's opinion.
Hyung took it that way, and it's very, very valid. I think there should be a lot of people overall frustrated. I wasn't thinking that, but now that Hyung brought it to light, I'm like, you know what? That does make sense. Now, switching back to just solely focusing on the authentication, I think that in itself is awesome. What eBay focuses their efforts on is obviously a different conversation, but this thing alone, I think it's great for the hobby. It's again, is it free for the authentication?
Yeah,
I'm assuming for the time being. I don't see why not. I think that it's really great for the buyer, secures maybe any questions that they have, and if it ends up being fake, then you get the guarantee both from PSA and eBay. I think that's great news all around for the buyer.
Yeah, no, I mean, you primarily looked from a buyer's standpoint, John, and then Hyung, you're kind of from a seller standpoint, so maybe that's where the disagreement and
we're all
is.
sellers.
Clearly,
we take the L's.
True. Well, the way I phrased that question, in journalism, that's called a leading question. So you kind of know where I'm stand on this. Like I'm kind of siding more with Hyung. I don't think it was a problem that really needed to be solved right now. Sure, it's the extra guarantee, but what I think is happening is I think eBay is beginning to lose their clients or customers that are selling high-end cards to these auction houses that are popping left, right, and center. Right. And they want to do something about it, right? 100%. They want to, capture some of that market back. I don't know if this is the right way to do it. I obviously don't think it's the right way. Maybe they should just be happy with the mid-tier. Like, just play the volume game. They're good at that. They corner the market on that already. How many millions of users are on their platform compared to, other companies like Golden or PWCC even, right? But, that's just my opinion. And I agree with Hyung, like the 12.9% fees. Start there. A lot of other issues, even with their authentication guarantee for raw cards. We know how many stories we've heard that they're not handling those cards properly or it's not getting shipped properly. That's we talked about that in a previous episode and how poorly they've executed on that plan too, right?
Right. Yeah.
So, and bad news, I've heard that they're going to lower that threshold from 2,000 to 750 on graded cards. So you're going to see a lot more cards going to this third-party PSA to make sure the graded cards are what the sellers say they are. Does that increase shipping times? Probably. That's going to kind of be annoying too. So
yeah, just please don't tell me like $100,000 PSA slab is going to be shipped in like a little cardboard sleeve.
Yeah.
Can you imagine?
It's wild. It's wild. I'll just leave it at that.
The thing that they send it to you after they authenticate that it's a real legit card. I think I can't remember which Instagram poster put it up, but like they have those rubber bands in the corners, like same thing with the raw cards, but you can make those into like a cardboard triangle. So they're selling it almost as a stand.
Oh man.
It's kind of ridiculous. Man. I mean, this is almost bad as the Topps box cutter that they're as a marketing thing.
That's funny. I didn't know that. I gotta check it out. Hey,
that's funny.
It's a double feature, so you can't hate on that. That's ridiculous.
You know what? I changed my mind now. I'm all for it because of that. All right. It'll be interesting to see how this all plays out. All right, let's move on now then to hobby headlines. Actually, we can probably call this segment Hobby Predictions because in this episode, we are going to make some predictions that we think might happen in the hobby, either in the short term or long term future. This idea actually came about because, John, you're questioning whether Panini Prizm Basketball cards would remain the set to collect for diehard basketball card collectors, or if it would be taken over by another set. And you can explain your thought process on this in a bit, but after you do, maybe we can, Hyung and I can think of some other more general changes in the hobby we think might happen and how that might affect what we end up collecting as future investments. Right. All right, but let's start with you, John. Just your idea of Panini Prizm, whether it's going to be the set to collect at all times.
Right. So I'll provide some context. I've been, obviously you guys know I am trying to target Luka. His cards are pretty low. And once in a while, I will look at I'll be here and there. I'll be very tempted to go and buy a base Luka, and in particular the Select Concours base, which has dipped into the 150, 175 category, PSA 10, if you can believe that. So my thought process was, man, that is too cheap. I should be buying we should be buying a bunch of those. But then when you think of when I thought about it more, Select will always be behind Prizm. Right? So I'm trying to think to myself, even if it's 175, is there potential for this card to go up? And the obvious answer probably would be yes, of course. It's $175. It's so cheap. Mm-hmm. But then in front of it is the Prizm, Luka Prizm, the uber example of the junk slab era of 20K, just like the Zion PSA 10 at 20K. But that's the anchor. Like, that's the leading base product. And if everybody is against the 20K and they're like, you know what, that's way too much. That card is trash. For me, I guess this is where the hobby prediction comes in. Something has to give here. If the Prizm, if I don't believe that Prizm is going to move, then obviously even the Select at 175, Optic at 200, Hoops at 150, Donruss at 190, whatever those prices are, they have no potential unless that Prizm moves first. The Prizm has to move for all the others to move too, together. So either something has to give here. In the future hobby prediction, people are not going to care. 20K pop in a PSA 10 is not really going to be a big deal. And the needle's going to start moving on Zion Prisms and Luka Prisms again. Or Prizm is going to topple and something like a Select Concourse, which has a pop of like 1500, is going to overtake the value of Prizm. Something has to happen in the next couple of years, I would imagine. Or I guess the third one is base just stays low forever, and it's forever going to be trash, and don't invest any base anymore, right? So it would be the three of what's going to happen in the hobby prediction. But that was my thought process, thinking about Luka Select at 175. Seems like an amazing deal, seems like an absolute no-brainer, but then Prizm is ahead of it, and like I said, if Prizm doesn't move, then what's going to happen here? So that was sort of the hobby prediction. Is Prizm going to stay king? Is it going to topple? Are people going to not care about 20K base and that it's going to start going up again? Or is base just going to, from here on in, just always remain trash?
What do you think is going to happen?
I personally think it's all dependent on Luka at the end of the day, right? Like, he needs to win an MVP. He needs to start going deep in playoffs, doing crazy stuff. I mean, he needs some support. It's kind of like that Mike Trout situation, I guess, in baseball. So I think that's going to be dictated on Luka's output. If people believe that he's that type of player at the end of the day, I think over time we forget, 2018 is still modern, right? So it's like we're still kind of living that high from the boom of the 2018, 2019, 2020 right. kind of card era, right? I'll tell you what, Luka prices were insane in 2019. Yeah. Insane, right? Mm-hmm. And even more insane in 2020 where his base Prisms were at 2K, right? So it's like something has to give there. The market obviously it's still in its correction in if you look at it from a long-term perspective. So I think it's yeah, there is going to be a floor. There's going to be support where people have like-minded thoughts. It's just like, okay, based on the pop, Luka's still Luka. I still believe in his talent. I wouldn't mind having a, select concourse in my collection for $150. I'll just keep it. And like I said, it's everyday prices is what dictates, the volatility. And as soon as people, start holding their cards, they'll realize, look at stuff like LeBron Topps Chrome, it still holds a lot of value because a lot of people aren't selling it every day, right? And as these players build their legacy, I believe it's going to all correct itself because the player like Luka is either you believe in him or not, right? And I think that's going to ultimately dictate kind of like where it goes. But I think, yeah, I agree. Like $150 is cheap. Like even my mindset is, okay, if Luka goes deep into the playoffs, let's just say, will that $150 go to 300? Right? And a lot of people just think that way. And based off that, I think you're going to get a lot of support on prices because there's at some point we always said if Luka base falls to 500, it's like ridiculous. It's a buy, right? I think it was like 750 and then 500 and then like it just keeps on going, right? So
yeah.
So if let's play crystal ball. Let's say Luka wins a championship this year, is playoff MVP. Are you still going after that Prizm? Or are you going to go after Select?
You know me. I love Select. I don't love his Concourse card, his Matt Damon card. But that's why I find so much value in his courtside, his Select courtside.
Which, by the way, I think it's like below 1,500 or something crazy.
Which is a steal, like based on the pop and, the future of that card. Like we've seen courtside, that courtside go up to, I don't even know. I don't even want to guess, but I'm saying 8K. at one point, and the silver is unaffordable, but it's one of his best cards. And I think that's a perfect marriage between between Prism and Select, right? Because I feel like the Concourse is just going to get like absolutely crapped on, because it's Concourse and he looks like Matt Damon. And then you got Courtside, which is low pop, and it's a great image. And 2018 Courtside was probably one of the best, I'd say 2018 and 2019, right? So
right.
Just to give you context, the 2018 Select Courtside, the pop count is 223, and it's sold for 7.5K at its peak.
At its peak. Oh, wow. Yeah. So it's like 8K. Yeah. I wasn't too far off, but yeah, I remember that. And that's the thing. It's like at that point you see the potential of the card. And that was when Luka was, just, starting, I guess. It's, he's 2018 and that was 2020. That was 2 years in. But I think that just proves kind of saying how much hype release has effect on, current rookies, right? And long term, it doesn't really make sense to, buy at, the second, third, fourth year of even superstars. Trae Young's a perfect example, right?
Yeah.
So,
yeah, no, it's a good question you bring up, John. But like the more I think about it, I feel like it's this unique period of time we're in where PSA grading was cheap, so everyone was grading their base cards. Mm-hmm. That's why you got this high pop count. I don't think we're going to see that again anytime in the near future because of where PSA grading prices are. And so if we just look at Luka base Prism or just Luka base cards in general, you got this set pop count now. So 20K, more or less. I don't think that's going to go up significantly from now. But yeah, I think what can push that base card up now then is really demand. And I think the hobby is going to continue to grow, maybe not at the pace that we saw in 2019, 2020. That's what kind of spiked those values, right? When everyone just kind of came in all of a sudden, whether it was because of the pandemic or just other factors. But now that things are opening up, now things are going a little bit back to normal, I think we haven't seen the end of the growth of the hobby, but we've certainly seen a slowdown and therefore a slowdown in the demand. But I do think over time it'll grow. And I like Hyung's point that over time, I believe in Luka's talent. I think he's going to be a legit star. Mm-hmm. He's going to get to that status where, he'll be a top 50 player, when his career is said and done. And I think it's a good comp. LeBron James Topps Chrome. It's, his supply is obviously a lot less, but I think, everything will just rise together. Like LeBron James Topps Chrome, as the hobby continues to grow over time, maybe in 5, 6, 7, 10 years, that card's going to increase. And then all the base for Luka Select, Luka Prism base cards will also increase as well. Maybe not at a fast rate like a lower supply LeBron James Topps Chrome, but I think we will see an increase. I just think you have to be patient with it though. You can't expect it to 2x or 3x even in the next 1 or 2 years. I don't think that's realistic at this point. Mm-hmm. So yeah, I don't know. Do you think? So are you going to buy some Luka base and hold?
I don't think I am because I don't. I think I'm with you in that. It's going to definitely be a longer term strategy. I don't see it moving right now, but I was asking you guys the crystal ball question because let's just say Luka did something in the next 2 years where it just everybody is after it. Like, okay, it's go time. The entire hobby is going after Luka. You might see something like Select overtake Prism at that point. Who knows, right? Because there is still that label that Prism. Yes, Prism is king, but Prism also has 20K pop, right? Mm-hmm. So I know for me, I would naturally be inclined to go after 3 Select bases at PSA 10 versus 1 base Prism. That's just me. But if there's a lot of people that think like me, there's only 1,500 of those around, right? So that was my thought process. I'm like, man, if Luka really goes off, who knows what happens to Prism,
And that's the beauty of the card market. You could play in any game. You could play in any card, multiple different cards, and still see a strategy of a potential investment, or a good play or a good value buy. Depends on how you look at it. Like Clark said, you might not 2-3x it in the next year or so, but if you are only looking at it in an annual lens and look at it as a 3-4 year cycle, then obviously it's a totally different game, right? And a perspective, right? So I think it all depends to like how you view your investments at the end of the day, right? So. Yeah.
And what you say makes total sense, right? Like a select with a lower pop count should cost more than a Panini with a higher pop count. But I mean, we could have talked about this last week in our hobby logic segment.
Right,
that's
that
true.
People just like Prizm over select, regardless of pop count.
Right.
But yeah, all right. No, I thought that was a worthwhile discussion to have and kind of fun exercise to do in terms of trying to predict what might happen in the hobby, and how that might impact how we collect cards in the present. Hyung, do you have any hobby predictions of your own, or?
You know what? Not anything in particular, but I believe based on 2022 baseball MLB, the class, I think Topps Chrome is going to be a huge release and amazing for the hobby. I think this is what is needed. I think all baseball heads could agree that 2021 was probably one of the most disappointing in terms of product release, player release, even in the prospecting world. In Bowman, 2021 Bowman was probably the worst release, I guess, out of all the Bowman releases throughout the year. And that's the flake shade. So
the main guys in 2021.
2021 was like everybody was chasing Blaze Jordan for some reason, and there's like Jairo Palmares and other,
got it.
good value guys. I think just it's so cheap, but you could still find, for instance, 2021 Bowman. No one's out there ripping it because it's not like a crazy product. But on the flip side, fast forward to 2022, we got Topps Chrome in a needed market where, there's like Wander Franco, Bobby Witt Jr., Julio Rodriguez, studs, and Spencer Torkelson. You got so many guys that are going to be part of this Topps Chrome flagship set that I think it's needed, one, in the baseball hobby, and two, I think prospecting is a different world. And the reason why I love it is like the bloodline of it connects baseball all together, and I know people don't dip into the minor leagues too much, especially until the athletes make it to the major leagues. But I believe based on like releases, so 2022 Bowman just released, like it's a hot release, right? And that's going to bleed into, the MLB season, and it keeps it going. And then, you got your Bowman Chrome release. That 2021 Bowman Chrome was phenomenal for prospects, right? So it's like you get that trend, and then at the end of the year, you get Bowman Draft, and in between you have your MLB, right? So my prediction, I guess, for the hobby is that 2021 was absolutely like bad. It wasn't fun, especially with kind of like the downward trend of the hobby in general from 2020. I think it really hurt the hobby in a bad way. So I'm looking forward to a little pickup this year just based on class. And you know what? When Soto's hot, when Tatis Acuna, like there's so many young superstars in the major leagues that's making baseball fun again, and I think that's so important for the space of the hobby, especially in the baseball world. And that's something to look forward to. So I'm very, optimistic about like the releases of the products this year, especially, the prospecting side of things too.
Mm-hmm. Interesting prediction, because you're not the first that I've heard this from. So I was listening to a while ago, Sports Card Nonsense. I think this was right at the turn of the new year, and obviously everybody had the theme of predictions for 2022, and they had, I don't know their names, but I think they had a couple of guys from Card Ladder on as guests, and they're asking for predictions, and one of the guys said, my prediction is baseball is going to finally get its big run up this year. Like basketball had its run up, football had its run up, and baseball never had its run up. This is going to be the year for baseball. So it's interesting how Hyung has mentioned all this, because maybe is it Topps Chrome that might actually spark this prediction to come true? Because it's gonna be a huge chase. Anybody that is into baseball, sports card collecting, I mean, Topps Chrome is on your calendar for sure as released. So I wonder if that prediction will come true.
I like it. You know, we have our friends in our WhatsApp chat. We've been collecting, or we've been buying boxes of Topps Chrome every year and ripping them open. Let's double down this year. 2 boxes minimum for everyone. Go chasing.
You know what?
So,
it's a good class. So I'm down. You know, I'm down.
We know Hyung's down. So like you were mentioning, Bobby Witt, Julio Rodriguez, those guys are in the 2022 Topps Chrome.
They will be, yeah, for sure, because they're gonna have
They
their
should
flagship rookie. I think probably Bobby Witt Jr. will be in Series 2 Topps, which is releasing as well. So that's probably gonna be good, a good release as well. And you know, paper doesn't get the love it used to. Right. And I think a lot of newer collectors are in the market and they like the Chrome product, which is limited compared to paper. So I think that's part of the reason. But true hobbyists love, you know, original releases like Topps Series 1 and Series 2 and sometimes update. Right. So, it's going to be interesting. But they should all be in that Topps Chrome product, which is going to be very, very exciting.
Yeah. Nice. Hopefully, it doesn't cost too much, but we'll see when the release date comes. And we'll talk about 2022 Bowman in our next segment, actually. But before we get there, my hobby prediction is very specific, and this is why I'm collecting certain cards the way I am. BGS True Gem is going to get, it's just going to see a run up in its value. Like, I think we're all looking at PSA 10. We're talking about issues with PSA 10 or PSA cards in general with trimming and all these other things. But with BGS slowly reopening up, I'm not counting them out yet as a grading company. Some people have already put them as third place. I still think they're number 2 in terms of grading company. But I think people are going to get more nuanced in what grades they want to chase after. Like, before it was like, as long as it's a BGS 9.5, 10 auto, min gem, true gem, it didn't really matter. But I think as collectors become a little bit more savvy and, and I think there are a lot of true gems that, like, there are some listings that are true gem plus that aren't labeled as such. So like if you can find those cards and they're, priced at min gem values and you believe in the player, that just buy it. Right. And, so like, and then, you know what? I think people are getting onto it though. Like I'm seeing those listings less and less now. But I still like the true gem play. I think if you're gonna, look for cards that you don't want to pay the premium of PSA 10s, but like that's why I bought my Jason Tatum Green Prizm BGS 9.5 True Gem. Like I think that's a cheaper, more affordable, card to pay. And then I think you're still gonna get a good value for it too when you decide to sell, right? So
I like that prediction because I find like that's part of the reason why true gems will retain value is I think a lot of people actually their thinking pattern is right now, like, since it's so cheap, it's a crack and resubmit like candidate, which is insane. Like, why would you crack out like a true gem BGS? Like, to me, that's insane. But if the prices are like half price, and this is where you get, guys that try, and I think they realize that PSA ain't giving out 10s. It's not automatic is what I'm saying. It's actually a huge gamble. Most likely it won't 10. That's the odds. So I think as people realize that and they get absolutely hammered on the returns, I think True Gem Plus, like you said, they are gonna retain value and hold value for what it is, right? So
no, I believe that for sure. Like the people that are successful in the crossovers, those guys are the ones that are gonna post on social media, look what I did. But the ones that aren't successful, they're just staying quiet.
Yeah, for sure.
You're not gonna broadcast that.
I will say this. I'm doing a video, and I did this purposely. But I basically took like a raw card BGS 9.5, and tried crossing it to a PSA 10. It comes back a PSA 7. You know,
Oh.
yeah. So a BGS 9.5 raw card, but I filmed all this. So the next step is SGC, and I want to see where this lands, right? Just to prove the subjectivity of grading and how crazy these values fluctuate based on one man's opinion or one grading card's opinion. But anyways,
I hope that comes back in SGC 10.
I know. I'm gonna be so happy. You know, the journey around. You know, PSA from the BGS 9.5 to PSA 7 to a SGC 10. You know, and that's why we say buy the card, not the grade.
The comeback of BGS, man. I think that's a great prediction.
Yeah, I hope so.
Yeah, I'll be honest, man. Clark. I'm with you. As much as we've been pumping up SGC, I still think BGS is right there. If not, I don't think SGC is completely taken over, because I just look at it from a branding and value perspective, right? And BGS is still a very, very strong brand, and it shows in a lot of the prices. And I'll admit, when I'm trying to look for value, value searches, I do search True Gems well more than SGC 10s for sure. I think SGC 10s a year ago was you can cop some big time steals. It's not there anymore. So I tend to definitely look at BGS True Gems. So I'm with you, man. I think that's a good one for sure.
Yeah.
Yep. No, I agree. All right. I guess really only time will tell whether our predictions will come true. But I think they're pretty good ones. And we'll see what happens. All right, let's go on then to our next segment we're calling Draft Day. Okay, it's a big day for baseball card collectors, as we mentioned a little bit earlier in the show, because other than the release of the Top Series 1 flagship set, the next big set, in my opinion, is the annual Bowman Baseball set, where you can get your first chance, I believe, to hit the first Bowman Chrome autograph cards of the next crop of baseball prospects. So with the release this week of the 2022 Bowman Baseball set, it's not Bowman Draft. I know we're calling this segment Draft Day, but I'm not that creative this late in the evening. So we'll just say Draft Day. I thought we could go over who the guys are in this set that we're chasing, and we have a former pro baseball player in Hyung to get his opinion on some of these prospects, because to tell you the truth, I was looking at the checklist. I'm like, who are these guys? They're like 18, 19-year-olds.
And that's what you got to remember. These are guys that are super young. So you don't know what's going to happen, but it's a different world. I think the allure of like prospecting is like a lot of stuff happens in a kid's like minor league career. A top 100 list is kind of like the main thing that people look at. What type of prospect is he? You know, is this person, right? So I think.
Well, before you go on to kind of highlight some of the prospects that are in this set, can you say like what can people expect when they buy a box of 2022 Bowman Baseball? It's going to be a lot of paper, but you got these chrome inserts, is that right? Yeah,
so chrome is what everybody's looking for, but you got your base paper set. One, I should rewind. You look forward to not having any money in your pocket, because the boxes sell out so quick, especially in 2022. I think these boxes are going to like sell out like everywhere, just because, or prices are going to get ridiculous on the secondary market. Just because of the class. But you got your paper base set, which isn't like the, I guess, most sought after, but there is, first base papers that you could pull that become valuable over time. You just leave it as a common card, in your stash, and then you realize, let's just say you had Ronnie Acuna Jr. in 2017, and his paper now sells for, I don't know what it sells for now, but at one point a PSA 10 was like $150-$200, right? So it's great because you have these, I guess, cards that you don't think is worth anything that can potentially be worth a lot in the future. So there's that, the paper base set with colors, which isn't like the reason why people like Bowman. It's more the prospecting side, which comes in more the chrome that people are looking for. Colors, obviously, and autos, right? Autos, you get, I think, one auto for hobby box in Bowman, which is very, very little. right? Compared to like your Bowman Chrome products where you have HTA, 3 autos or, 2 in the hobby. And Bowman Draft Super Jumbos are 5 autos, and then their jumbos are just 3 autos. But 2022 Bowman just has one auto in your hobby, and then you have 12 boxes in a case. So it's a lot harder to hit these prospects in Bowman with the autos, but they go for premiums. Like you're talking, Khalil Watson is kind of like the big chase for the Miami Marlins. He actually missed Bowman draft 2021, and he was included in 2022 Bowman. But a purple auto was selling for like $2,000, which is ridiculous. Wow. You're talking like, MLB superstar prices already, right? So there's the allure of that because there's people, because of the hype, people are ripping because they're looking for a quick, payout. Like, hey, if you rip a box and you pull a Khalil like orange, like that could be like almost like life-changing money to some people, right? So like there's that hope where everybody looks forward to because there's this hype built around it, right? So I personally love prospecting. I think it's so fun. It's a whole different game that I think if you're bored of the typical linear like baseball collecting, what's my next, the typical Soto, Vladdy, Tatis. I mean, get into Bowman prospecting, and I promise you it'll keep you entertained because you're going to start looking into kids' careers. You're going to start looking into minor league systems. You're going to look at, top 100 prospect lists to see, the upcoming, and this could help you make moves in the future once you start knowing the market, right? So I think it's the bloodline of, baseball cards prospecting because you have your 2022 Bowman release that just happened actually today. They were a little late. Today when we record this, it's May 4th. So that was the delayed launch date. So you got every, breaker breaking this right now, including, I'm a part of a break that I'm not watching right now. I don't know how I did, but yeah, it's
Khalil Watson.
Yeah, I know. I didn't get Miami. I got New York, and Pittsburgh. But it's fine. There's a lot of prospects, and another reason why too that I really like just prospecting in general. Though these Chrome cards, these Chrome first cards, they become very valuable. Like I said. Nobody knew who Anthony Volpe was, when 2020 Bowman released, and you collected these base Anthony Volpe cards that that you didn't think were worth anything. And, all of a sudden 1 year later, he hits 30 home runs in the minor leagues, becomes like the number 1 prospect in the New York Yankees organization. And all of a sudden these base chromes that you thought were worthless are like $200-$300 in a PSA 10, right? So I think from an ROI perspective, people who rip a lot of prospect product, they know this. So it's kind of like a safe bet. Right? Like for instance, Robert Hassell, he's tearing up, A-ball with the Padres. He could easily become one of the top prospects in MLB. He's like hitting 400, A lot of people didn't even touch, Hassell base chromes because no one would grade them. It wasn't worth it. And all of a sudden you see them climbing $56-$60, because as the kid progresses, all his other cards kind of go up as well. Right. So there's that where it's a kind of a surprise where, you could, get a lot of value in that in Rip and Bowman, even though it's very expensive. Right. So, yeah, going back to kind of like who the chase is, you got I guess a lot of hitters in this product, which is good because 2021 was absolutely dog crap. Like it was sorry, I shouldn't say it's dog crap because there's a lot of value still in it. People don't realize that there's a lot of value, but compared to like previous years, like 2019, 2020 Bowman, like 2019 was Wander Franco's year, Julio Rodriguez, like you got some studs. 2020, you got like Bobby Witt Jr., Dominguez, like Volpe, all these, studs. And then 2021 kind of like sucked all year, even Topps Chrome. And then now 2022, it's like, bam, you got a lot of, I guess, hitters They loaded it up with hitters, and you have a lot of like YouTube channels that kind of break it down. So I would, if you're into prospecting, I would go, check out YouTube channels, see who kind of like the main chases are. A lot of people break it down to like tier 5, tier 4, tier 3, tier 2, tier 1 players. So the tier 1 players is what everybody's chasing. This is why prices are insane. You got your Khalil Watson for Miami. You got your Ellie De La Cruz for Cincy. George Valera is big for Cleveland. I personally think guys like James Wood have like extreme value. He's San Diego Padres, so he was a 2nd round pick, and he's like an absolute monster, like 6'7", like you're talking an Aaron Judge from the left side potential, like an O'Neal Cruz type guy that was taken in the 2nd round last year, right? So now he's like absolutely tearing up the minor leagues. He wasn't that big of a prospect, right? So
nice.
There's a lot of value, I think, in the product. You got guys like even Ronald Acuna Jr.'s youngest brother. He's 16 years old, Brian Acuna.
Wow.
And yeah, he's 16 years old, and I've seen his base autos going for like a couple $100, right? So it's like this guy's not going to play a single professional game for the next 3 years, 2 years, in terms of, here on the, I guess we call it off the island, where it's, rookie ball and up, he's going to be 18 then. So like it's insane that these prices command it. And this is part of the hobby logic. People are like, well, how does this guy's card sell for more than someone who made the major leagues? And that's the whole point. It's like, it's not about who plays major league games. It's a whole different, ball game we're talking about, right? So yeah, I really like this year's release. I think there's a lot of potential, and it's a relatively fun rip. There's Walmart blasters that are available that I've seen a lot of people hit some decent stuff. So I think I think the product is great, and I'm excited to kind of see the results of it, right? So
nice. I'm looking forward to hitting some breaks of 2022 Bowman. I just looked up James Wood. Like the people are already listing the hits. So he's got his base first Bowman Chrome listed for $200 right now. That seems like a pretty good deal.
It's you know what, and that's the thing. People realize, they start buying like these base Chromes at 200. Yeah. They're gonna see a huge retraction. If that player plays okay, it's gonna be $100 next year. Right. Sure. It always happens. But on the flip side, let's just say James Wood ends up, becoming a 20-year-old stud in AA that's, projected to be in the major leagues. That's where that base auto could go to, like Volpe or Witt type prices, right? So that's where kind of like the volatility plays. And a lot of these, investors in prospects, they know this, right? And that's why it's part of the chase. It's like you go after the chase of the release product, and then, the prices on the most, they tank, right? So it's a good buying opportunity. Like 2020, 2021, there's good value right now, because people forget about that, and it's like the hottest release now, right? And people dump money into guys like Khalil Watson, who's played like 10 minor league games, and you're dumping all this money into these big time prospects, right?
Yeah.
So yeah,
no, it's a lot of fun. You know what? Like if you've been in the hobby for a while, like even in the last 4 or 5 years, and you've been collecting Bowman baseball year after year,
for sure.
Sometimes you just forget about them, but then you look back at the 2018 box that you bought. You're like, oh shoot, I got Ronald Acuna, or like guys that you didn't think.
It's incredible.
That's an extreme example, but yeah, like there's some prospects that they're in the big leagues now, and then you're like, wow, I actually have this card. I think that happens more frequently than you would think for people who collect Bowman baseball year after year. And you know what I like about Bowman baseball too is because when you get these hits of these prospects that are super super young, like there are always buyers. Like always buyers. When you list them right away, because everyone's like, there are a lot of baseball fans out there, and they're like, oh, like everyone thinks their career is going to go much better than realistically, right? Because it takes years to develop,
for sure,
in major league ball player, but everyone has that optimistic outlook on a lot of these prospects. So like I think I can't remember if it was which year the Bowman baseball set was, but like I think Shohei's Chrome Auto was the chase. Everyone was chasing it, and we bought like my friends and I bought 3-4 boxes of it chasing. Didn't hit anyone, but we did hit a gold refractor, and I can't even remember the name of the prospect. It was a Giants prospect gold refractor, and sold it for like $300, and I'm pretty sure he's not in the big leagues.
He's flipping burgers somewhere.
I'm pretty sure it's $5 right now
somewhere, and you made your $300, and that's the whole point, right?
Yeah. If you get a nice color refractor and you don't know who it is, you could get your money's back right away. But it's always fun collecting prospects, and I can't wait to rip at least one box open.
You know what? I did actually. I picked up Walmart blasters because they had like a limit of 2, and I'm sure it's sold out by now. But I was like, you know what? I'm gonna see how blasters are. I rarely rip retail because like I want the guaranteed auto. But I did pull an Oswaldo Cabrera, New York Yankees, a pretty decent prospect. Mm-hmm. I pulled a base auto out of a blaster, which is crazy. Yeah, nice. Which sells for about $150 US raw right now, which is crazy. Way overpriced, I think. But yeah, I think there's good opportunity in 2022 Bowman retail as well. So
there's music to my ears. That's all I need to hear.
John's gonna go blaster.
Back. Okay, I'm in.
Come on, John. You and I have like the same luck. Like I never get any good hits on
retail
for sure.
Boxes. Oh yeah.
Because guys like Hyung get the hits. Frig, man.
Yeah, you know what? I don't have great luck in retail. I'll admit that's why I stay away from it, because it's just like it's not fun. Like I want color. I want to try for that color, and like it feels like a retail sometimes. I see cards that I've never seen before. Like it's like prospects that never existed in the hobby sets. I'm seeing these random autos that it's like, who? Like, right. You know what I mean? Normally that's the case, right? It's like you just pull weird autos. Like it's never like the guy that is the chase, right? So, but and then you pull a 1-of-1 wander out of a,
right.
Exactly. So there's that side too. So I just, it's
never know.
Yeah, you just never know.
Yeah. All right, thanks for that, Hyung. I like that in-depth look of Bowman baseball, and I'm sure for every baseball card collector out there, it's an exciting set to collect, and I'm sure we'll see a lot of these hits posted on eBay even now.
Check prices, check prices. It's insane. That's why it's a seller's market. Rip, hit something big and sell it. And,
there you go.
Rinse and repeat.
All right, good stuff. Let's end off this episode with our regular weekly segment that we're calling Pick One. And it's our regular edition this week, so we're just going to pit 2 cards against one another, and then we're going to just debate which card we would rather have. All right? Hyung, do you want to start things off?
Sure. I'm going to go, let's talk a bit about Mike Trout a bit. Excited that he's, he's putting MVP numbers up again. It looks like he has a shot at putting together a decent season. So I expect, a lot of attention on Mike Trout this year, because this is kind of like, hey, if he has another MVP season, type season, this guy is seriously, making a statement in terms of, his numbers. So I'm pairing 2 cards up, 2 Mike Trout rookie cards that I think is a must in any like collection. Which, if you had to choose for a Mike Trout rookie card, which one would it be? Right? So I'm pairing 2011 Topps Update, so the US 175, right? The classic white border, him swinging, PSA 10, which is hovering about 2600, versus 2011 Bowman Chrome, number 175. So it's not the Bowman Chrome draft. It's where he's standing up tall, red jersey, right? Bowman Chrome number 175 PSA 10, also sold for 2600. So obviously the more popular card is the Topps update. Yeah. So the population is a little higher there. I don't know the exact population count, but which one are you guys picking for if you guys had to choose one Mike Trout rookie card?
John, you can go first, but I'll just give you the pop count that I just looked up. So the Bowman Chrome number 175, the pop count for PSA 10 is 471, and for a Topps Update, PSA 10 is 5,666.
Okay. You know, if you're gonna just choose one, I might sound crazy for saying this, because how could you not pick one of the all-time iconic cards? But I am just such a sucker for good pop counts and underrated cards. If you give me the word underrated,
Value.
I'm in. And it's a chrome. So for me, just my style, I'm gonna pick the Bowman Chrome Mike Trout over the paper all-time iconic Mike Trout. Probably get some heat for that, but yeah, I just, I love the fact that it's very underrated. It's a chrome card, and then that low pop count. I think it's got some legs.
What about you,
Yeah,
Clark?
no, that's fair. But I'm gonna apply hobby logic. I'm going with the Topps Update. I just can't explain it other than hobby logic. But I think part of it's just iconic. It's a modern day iconic card.
Right.
And I would, which one would I rather have? I'd rather have the Topps Update and show it off to my friends. And there's gonna be more people than not that will identify, will know this card as the baseball card collectors anyway, right? They're like, oh, you got this card. And I think that's what keeps the value up. Like, people just there's enough people that there's enough demand for that card. Whereas the Bowman Chrome, it is lower pop, but I don't think the demand is there yet. It might be there in the future, but right now, I think the Topps Update will just always be there in terms of for any baseball card collector to have one in their set.
Fair enough. That's it's funny that I thought you guys would both go with the lower pop, to be honest. So I find that if you're a Topps Update holder, your next go-to card would be the Bowman Chrome, because it's one of those things where if you had one, you'd pick the Topps Update, but then I think it's like, what's that next card? I want something better. And I think the Bowman Chrome is the actual upgrade of a 2011 update. So I'm going to go actually Bowman Chrome. Just being a holder, like I had the PSA 10 update. I love the card. It's a great card, but like, I think the Chrome is very at like the older school Chrome. It's a lot more rare. And I think that's basically Mike Trout's first Chrome card. Right, so he didn't have a Topps Chrome, so 2012 would be his first year Topps Chrome. So Bowman Chrome was really the only one. That's kind of why his Bowman Chrome draft kind of sells for a premium still, because it was kind of like the last release of that, Mike Trout rookie. So I'm gonna go the 175 Bowman Chrome between the two.
Interesting, yeah. If you asked me this question a year ago, I would have said Bowman Chrome, but I don't know what's happening to me. My tastes are changing.
Yeah, you're joining the crowd. I like
going
it.
Going for Luka Doncic silver prisms at 2,000 pop count. Like, just hobby logic.
Yeah,
it's a good one. All right, John, you gotta go next.
All right, fellas, we're gonna go with the Liquid Kings. Luka, like you said, Luka Prizm Silver PSA 10.
Okay.
Recently sold as low as 2,300. Clark may have been.
They just keep on going down.
Clark may have been the one that purchased it for that price.
Yeah, that's what I got it for.
He's buying everything under 2,600.
That's my threshold limit.
Versus Mahomes Optic Hollow PSA 10 sold recently as low as 2,500.
Wow.
Ooh, that is tempting.
You know what? I'll go first on this. It's easy for me because we've talked so much about Luka Silvers. I'm not going that way. I'm going Optic Hollow Mahomes. I'm buying low because I know that thing's gonna spike up once season starts and I'm selling it. But like, but yeah, I'm going the Optic Hollow Mahomes because I'm not holding either.
Well, I have the Luka Doncic, so like I feel like that's my answer, right? Like,
it has to be, right?
It has to be Luka. So the reason why I went for and you guys know from previous episodes and in our private conversations, like I'm all for the Patrick Mahomes Optic Hollow, and I think at that price, super tempting. If I could find it at a local card show, maybe in June at the Sport Card Expo, I might pull the trigger then. But I just looked at the pop count, 643 for PSA 10 Optic Holo compared to 2,000 for, as we said before, for the Luka Doncic Silver Prism. So the pop count's nice. I think it's a classic card. I think Optic Holos for football cards is classic. I think that's going to be classic.
Sure. Especially Mahomes this year.
Especially for Mahomes, but like just for quarterbacks in general. Like I love all of them,
the pose photos are great.
Yeah. So that's next on my list. But the reason why I went for Luka first, I just think basketball is a bigger sport in general. I think the demand's going to be there for Luka more than Mahomes worldwide. Maybe not just in the US, but so like I'm playing like that game, I guess, like that, just betting on Luka being just more of a popular athlete. And I don't know. I could totally be wrong, but and the Silver Prism, it's iconic, right? For basketball cards. So and it's the card to get. So for Silver Prism and being Luka, who I'm bullish on, that's why I go for Luka.
Good call. All things being equal, let's say both guys are just kind of on regular course of action. Nothing crazy happens like Luka winning the championship in the next 12 months. I'm gonna, as much as I've said that I believe I'm worried that Mahomes cards will dip even further, I'm still gonna pick the Optic Holo Mahomes. Like for all the reasons we said, we've always, Clark, you and I have always kind of wanted it. I think the classic optic look, the quarterback pose, the pop count is low. And I think even in general right now, when you look at pricing activity, basketball versus football, I feel like football has way more volatility. Football just has, maybe it's the 16 game schedule, the hype within those games. But I could see Mahomes cards bouncing way back up, going right back to 4K, 4,500, 5K. I can see that happening if Chiefs come out hot. They're looking like Super Bowl favorites again and whatnot. So I think the football market in general has way more volatility, and it has a chance for your card to grow quicker in the next 12 months. So for all of those reasons, I go Optic Holo Mahomes.
Yeah, I agree with that, except with the volatility argument. I totally agree with that, but it could go the other way too. Like it could crash hard if
obviously
within a 16 game season, injury, that can happen
for sure.
So
because Mahomes, to be honest, he in people's eyes he is teetering a little bit, right? Let's say he comes out like a dud next year. People will probably still say, yeah, could probably still be a Hall of Famer, but now people will really be jumping off the bandwagon, right? So you're absolutely right. I think either way it could happen. It could go as low as 1,250 or something really, really low, or as high as, you're right.
Yeah, I could totally see both ends for sure. All right, good one. All right, we'll end off with my pick one. As usual, I want to go hockey instead this time.
Nice.
So Austin Matthews, Young Guns PSA 10. I think the last one sold for about 2,300 versus Connor McDavid's Young Guns PSA 10, which sold for about 3,000. So just want to see what the better value you think is, right? So and the pop counts both around the same, 2,300 give or take 100 either way.
This one's tough because, like, for me, I had an Austin Matthews Young Guns for way cheaper than 2,300. So it's like at 2,300, it's like, oh, that was my sell price, right?
Yeah.
So where I see McDavid as, man, 3,000, that's pretty low, I think, for a guy like McDavid. But again, you're seeing, playoff hype, right? And the I guess the leftovers from Austin Matthews, memorable season this year, and breaking, some big hefty, season records for the Maple Leafs. So I like Austin Matthews, but I think Connor McDavid is the better long-term buy. I think a part of the hype is in what he's accomplished, and a little bit of the hype of, the prices could change by the time, the next recording, because,
Right.
Maple Leafs might not be in contention, right? So, but hopefully that's not the case. Hopefully, because that was one of my picks for the year, was that the Maple Leafs are bringing in the cup, right? So,
Right.
and Mitch Marner was like, his prices are going to go big, but it was Austin Matthews. So, but I'm going to go Connor McDavid at this point, because I think $3,000 is pretty cheap for his young guns, and I think long term, like, man, he's like John always says, he's generational talent, right? So, and both are. So, yeah, I think Connor McDavid's a priority over Austin Matthews at this point.
Okay.
Right. I literally 5 minutes ago, before Clark, you announced your 1v1, it was a no-brainer for me. Like, obviously Matthews is on a super high run. His card, what was previously $800, $1,000 US, is now at 20, above 2,000. And then McDavid, his cards are actually in a bit of a lull. Like, it's come down since the high of the midseason. So it makes sense, all the sense in the world, that McDavid is the easy choice. And I am still going to pick McDavid for all the reasons of generational talent, yada, yada, yada. But I can definitely now see the argument for Austin Matthews. I wasn't believing it. Even last week, I don't think I was believing it. But this is the concept that I talked about when I posed that question, Cole Caulfield versus Zegras, right? Like, Zegras is obviously the sexy pick. He's getting all the attention. But when push comes to shove, goal scoring is sexy, and goal scoring is what's going to catch a lot of attention. Now, if Matthews, we may be biased because he's Toronto and we love him. But if Matthews from here on in is kind of leading the charge to win the Rocket Richard from here, let's say this kid is like lights out, for sure, 50 goal seasons every year from here on in, flirting with 60, flirting with 65, multiple Rocket Richard trophies. Who knows if his value can topple Connor McDavid? Maybe he's not generational like McDavid, but in terms of card values, I could see there being some, like let's say hobby predictions. It could happen. It could happen, man. It could happen. So, who knows? But I'm still gonna pick McDavid. I think conventional wisdom. It all makes all the sense in the world. But just a little point I wanted to make about Matthews and goal scoring, and also I'm big on Cole Caulfield.
Had to get Cole Caulfield back in the conversation. Eh? Okay. All right, that's interesting. All three pick threes. Hyung and John picked the same way, and I'm going with Austin Matthews. I'm the lone wolf on this pick three segment. You know what? I don't even have to say much because John kind of laid out my argument. Right? Like,
oh, sorry, man.
No, it's all good. But what I will add, besides being a true goal scorer, is I think, I might be completely wrong by the time this airs because, they're both playing right now in round one. And I think the Leafs have a better shot to get out of round one than the Oilers do. In my opinion, that might totally be a homer pick, but and I just saw the score right now. The Leafs just lost game 2, 5-3. So the things are tied up 1-1. And I didn't check the Oilers score. They lost game 1, right? So they're already playing from behind. But anyway, I think at 2,300, like, I totally agree with you, Hyung. Long term, I'm McDavid, but if I want to make a short term flip, I think Matthews is the guy. Like, even at 2,300, if they come out of round 2, if he wins what was the award? Rocket Richard.
Richard, yeah.
I could see it go up another 500, 600, 700, and then you just flip it, right? Whereas McDavid, I think he's going to just stay at that level, and I don't think the Oilers are going to win the cup this year either. So.
Right.
So yeah, I think maybe timelines kind of plays a role in which one we choose, and I'm already thinking of a much shorter timeline. So yeah, I'm gonna go with Matthews, and it'll just be fun to to have his card and cheer for the Leafs while they're in the playoffs too. But totally biased pick. But no, I could see his card going out for sure.
Well, I was gonna say, well, here's an interesting thought. Oh, sorry, finish your thought, Clark. Sorry.
No, I was gonna just say I could totally see what you said already, that he could in the short term hit the 3,000 mark as well, where McDavid is at.
Well, here's an interesting thought. Sidney Crosby was the generational talent of a decade ago versus Ovechkin, and prices reflected that, where Sidney Crosby's prices were kind of here. If Sidney Crosby's Young Guns was 3,000 right now, just like Connor McDavid, Ovechkin's Young Guns back in the day was like 1,500, 2,000 ratio wise. The numbers weren't actually those numbers, but you know what I'm saying, right?
Yeah.
So that point about goal scoring, look at where the prices are now. Fast forward, even though we all know what Crosby's accomplished and he's generational and he has way more accolades and Stanley Cups and all yada yada yada, Ovechkin prices still kind of lead the charge, right? So that's the thought process, like putting into perspective Matthews versus Connor McDavid.
All right, there you go. So I'm right. Okay, let's close out the show with that. As usual, thank you for all our followers and listeners and our subscribers to our podcast. We appreciate your feedback, and if you haven't subscribed and you're listening to this podcast for the first time, you can subscribe wherever you listen to your podcast. Give us 5 stars if you enjoyed the episode, and we come out with a new episode every Tuesday and every other Friday. All right, we'll see you again next week. Bye. Hey, thanks for listening to Cards to the Moon. We'd really appreciate you subscribing to our podcast wherever you listen to your podcasts. And you can also connect with each of us on Instagram at 5cardguys, or you can follow Hyung at Integrity Sports Cards, or John at TradeU at Recess. You can also check us out at 5cardguys.com. Thanks again, and hope to connect soon.